Awesome. Am I alive? I'm live here. You can hear me?
Yes.
Perfect. Awesome. Thank you everybody in attendance here today. Great to see you all. Appreciates people coming out and just trying to learn more about Voiceflow and really how to get started creating something of value with that. And that's really what we're trying to show today, is how you can turn an idea into reality with Voiceflow, turn a concept into kind of a functioning conversational app through Voiceflow. And just, what are the steps that you would take in the process to design and build that out? So we're going to run through a practical example today. And I guess just to kind of give you, here, you know what? Get my screen sharing going, and I'll just give you a quick demo of what we're going to build, and then we can go through the steps on how to get there. Let's do the old screen share first. All right, Emily, if I ever forget to full screen my app, you just cut me off and tell me, because I did this webinar before, and my window is half the screen. And so that wasn't super useful. So we're going to make this one good, I promise. All right, today, what are we going to build? What are we going to walk through in this in this session? Well, I, for one, am a person who is surrounded by Alexas and Google devices all around my home. And whenever I have an idea, I'm often just running to my computer to get that jotted down on my to-do list. When realistically, the better solution is just talk to all these devices surrounding me and get them to integrate with my note-taking app and get these ideas and thoughts saved, so I don't need to A, forget them, or B, drop what I'm doing to run to my keyboard. And so I thought that, it's a personal problem I'm trying to solve, but probably has a general application to a lot of people. But more than that, it gives a good idea on just kind of how all of the features and functionality in Voiceflow come together to create that experience. So I'll give you a quick demo of what we're building first. Here's my Todoist. That's my note-taking app here. And say and I've got my Alexa open on my phone here, and I just say there's Alexa. All right. Hey, Alexa, open Note Taker.
Go ahead.
Add analytics to the website.
Want to review it, add details, or save it?
Save it.
Okay, saved. Let me know if you want to add another one.
All right, great. Alexa's helped me save my notes. I didn't have to drop what I was doing. I can finish my dinner and move on with my day and not forget to add analytics to the website. Now, how do we get there? Well, the steps to run through this are all broken out conveniently on the canvas here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to share this file, so you have the template ready to go yourself if you want to follow along on your own screen and don't want to just kind of stare at mine. So what I'm going to do, copy the link here, and I'm going to drop it into chat, wherever that chat went. Where are you, chat? Ah, there you are. More chat. This is a paid Todoist account that I'm using, but it would function all the same on a free one. The only difference would be that you are unable to use the category tagging that I'm using in this example. All right. So if you go ahead there and copy and paste that link, I can just give you an example of what it looks like. It's going to let you download the project to a workspace of your choice. I have too many workspaces in there, but just select a workspace and then hit the copy project button, and that will download it for you. And you can jump into your own version of the project and follow along from there. Come back to here. All right, now to full screen. So what we're going to run through is just the general process to get a conversational application from idea all the way through to functioning application, production ready application. This is a pretty simple use case, and the amounts of functionality that we're going to build into it's going to be pretty stripped back to fit this within an hour demo. But I think it should give you a good example of relatively how easy it is to get these ideas built. And the steps that we're going to go through to get there are, first, looking at sample dialogues. Sample dialogues are a great tool to really whiteboard out or wireframe out your ideas for a conversational experience. It's one of the best tools in a conversation designer's toolkit, in a conversational app developer's toolkit, because it really helps you define scope for what your conversational application is going to need to do. Once we have our sample dialogue defined, then we're going to get into the development of our happy path, and really that's just what is the ideal end-to-end flow without any interruption, without any issues, which is not in any way reflective of reality, but just a best case scenario to give you that first testable experience for your conversational application. And in doing that, we're really going to be running through the functionality that you find, the steps functionality here found in the response and user input section. So these two sets of functionality are really what allows the system, the responses, the system to interact with the user, and then from the user input, allowing the user to interact with the system. And so every conversational application is made up of turn taking or turns, and these collection of functionality is what allows you to create those turns in your conversation. Next, we're going to get into dialogue management, which allows for more robust interactions where you're required to get a collection of information from the user in order to proceed in the conversation. So as you're designing the intents for your applications, the functions that it's going to enable, what are all of the pieces of information that we need to capture on that in order for that function to be successful? And so dialogue management is really the best mechanism to make sure that you are capturing all of that information. Next, as mentioned in step one, there is no perfect user experience. Something is going to be misheard. People aren't going to provide all of the necessary pieces of information. People are going to jump around in a conversation when they're interacting with your app. And so that's where you really need to focus on conversation repair. How do you bring the interaction with the user back on topic to make sure that all of that your conversational application is pushing them towards a successful outcome at the end of it. The next topic we'll get into is really around context. How do you layer additional context on top of the conversation that the user's having with their assistant? And so that could be context around the context we know about the user, their user history, their account details, anything else that we know about the customer preferences. It can be context around their location. Maybe you want to surface up different weather information based on whether you're living in sunny Florida or snowy Toronto. You can provide context around the system itself that they're working on. So if someone's interacting on a speaker-only device, you're probably going to want to design a different experience for them than if they're on a multimodal device and they're able to see both visuals and interact through their voice. And finally, so all of that functionality, is contained within this logic collection over here in the steps menu. And then finally, we're going to get into integrations. So just how do you pull in context from an external system or push out context to an external system? That's ultimately how we'll hook up the conversational experience we're designing here to my note-taking application at the end of it. So, all right, let's jump into this. Emily, if there's any kind of in context, I'm not watching the chat. So if there's any in context questions, feel free to interrupt. I'm going to answer them as we go. So, oh, sorry.
Just saying you got it. I'll get it.
Perfect. Thank you. All right. So starting point. I described the problem that I was trying to solve with my note-taking skill here. I'm building an Alexa skill. The same exact skill could be built out on Google Assistant on our platform. The same exact skill could be designed out on the General Assistant channel that we've just launched that Emily mentioned, if you wanted to utilize it off platform of Alexa or Google. So the first starting point for this though is taking that problem and starting to map out what would the interaction look like that helps me solve that problem. So I'm sitting at the dinner table, I'm having dinner with my family, and I go, oh shoot, we haven't added any analytics to the website. We got no idea who's visiting. Okay, I need to get that done tomorrow, and I can't forget about this. But I don't want to upset the family by getting up and running to my computer to input that. Okay, so I say to my Alexa, hey Alexa, I need to record something. Okay, then Alexa's going to respond back to me and say, is this a note or a to-do? It wants to help. It wants to help push the conversation forward. And the information it needs to do that is to categorize which type of a note I'm giving. What list is it going to add it to? My to-do list or my notes? And then I respond back, okay, this is a to-do. Great. Alexa's got the next piece of information it needs to keep the conversation moving forward. So it's ready to get the content of my note. All right, what do you want it to say? Well, add Google Analytics to the new landing page on the website. Then Alexa's going to confirm it just to make sure that that this complex phrase I gave it was recorded accurately. So it's going to say, here's what I heard. Add Google Analytics to the new landing page on the website. Is that correct? Yes, I confirm that. Then it asked me if I would like to categorize it, which I would. I'm going to tag it as analytics because I have my notes all neatly organized in my Todoist. Great. Okay, done. Do you want to mark this as a priority? Well, I do. I got to get it done tomorrow. It's a 4. It's the highest priority here. All right, and then it confirms everything it heard from me before saving this. Yes, I want to save this, and then it asks me if I want to add something else, and I say no thanks, and the interaction's done. So, that is the extent of a successful interaction between me and my note-taking application there. This is a great starting point for me to then jump into Voiceflow and start designing out the happy path experience that is contained within this sample interaction between me and my Alexa. So thankfully, we have it all mapped out already for us in this project, but I can just kind of walk you through how this got built so that it doesn't just look like magic or just doesn't look complex. So the way that we approach rebuilding that interaction is every conversation starts at your start block. This is going to be there by default on every project. So this is when your skill gets invoked, your Google action gets invoked, your project gets invoked. This is the starting point of that interaction. So when I say, hey Alexa, I'd like to take a note for me, that's what this block represents. Okay.
Do you mind zooming in into the blocks as you're talking about them?
That's a great point. Thank you, Emily. You're saving me from myself here. All right. So once my skill is invoked, the first thing we're going to do is the system is going to provide a response, and it's going to say to the user, is this an idea or to do? Those are the two categories I have in my Todoist. So it's just going to help me narrow that down at the gates. And then we're going to use a choice block. And what the choice block is the choice block allows you to define a closed set of intents that can be used at that point in the interaction. And so what it means is that only the choices that you have listed here are the ones that the user can invoke. So I have 2 choices listed. I have, it's an idea choice, which is an idea intent. So I would trigger that intent by saying, this is an idea, I've got an idea, I have an idea, and I've got my to-do. This is a to-do, it's a to-do. And so I'm creating this basically a finite paths forward for the user here, which just allows my app to get the information it needs to move on to the next step. And then this type of interaction just kind of repeats to collect the remainder of the application or the information. So, okay, what's the content? Now I have the content here, and I'm just using, I'm using a single slot here to gather the content. So on an intent, you can define slots, and slots are variable pieces of content that could be used within that intent. So a great example we always use is if I have the intent, I want to order a pizza, my order pizza intent, I could also say, I want to order a cheese pizza. And within that utterance there, I've given the toppings slot. We know that the type of toppings for the pizza they want is cheese. So in this case, I could also say my note is note. So if the user says, just gives their input here, whatever that is, it's going to be captured as their note. Great. Then once that intent has been matched, once we've gotten the note content, it's going to move on, and then we've got another speak block, and this system's going to say, I heard, and then play back the note. So within speak blocks, or sorry, let me go back. Within your intents, when you're using slots, you can capture the information, or the information you receive gets captured as a variable so that you can use it later on in your conversation, in your user experience here. So I'm going to play that note back. It's going to play whatever content was captured at this previous step, and then play it back and ask if that's correct. The user is going to say yes or no to confirm. If no, well, we're going to link them back and say, okay, well then what should it say? And repeat the capture process. If yes, it's going to move us forward to what should I tag this as a category with? And then it's going to provide a tag. I have a finite number of categories available in my system. So on my slot here, I'm going to define, here are the categories that I'm going to accept. So within my category slot, it could either be analytics, design, development, or marketing. And so when I say tag it analytics, it's going to capture that, and it's going to set my category slot value to analytics. I could also say tag it marketing, and it would capture that category slot value as marketing. Similarly, should I mark this as a priority? This priority choice is the exact same. I can either say, yes, it's a priority of the priority is, and then give it a number, or no. Either way, it just moves on to the next step. It's just whether I'm capturing that priority data or not. Okay, and then it's just going to repeat back everything I heard, and then ask if it wants me to save this. If I say yes, it says done, add another, and gives me the choice to add another. It's a very, very straightforward linear interaction. The user doesn't have much choice on this path. They just simply, it's like a verbal form where the system is asking for a piece of information and the user is giving that information back. So I'll just run through a test for what that user experience, how that acts.
Is this an idea or a to-do?
So this, in the test tool, there's a couple ways that you can test your interaction. You can type in here. If you're around other people and you don't want to speak, you can use voice input here, or you can use chips. And the chips are simply going to show one of the utterances listed for each of the available intents. So I'll use my voice. This is an idea.
Okay, what should it say?
Add analytics to the website.
Okay, I heard add analytics to the website. Is that correct?
Yes.
Should I tag this with a category?
Tag it with analytics. Oh, it didn't capture my my utterance there correctly, so I can just go backwards. Something to note about the test tool currently is that it's looking for the phrases you've defined in utterances verbatim. And so if you don't match those, it's not going to recognize it, but you can just hit the back button here and it'll take you back a step so you can retry your input. Tag it with analytics. One more try. Tag it with analytics. Tag it with analytics. All right, there we go.
Should I mark this as a priority?
It's a 3.
Okay. I'm adding Add Analytics to the website to your list, tagged with analytics and a priority of a 3. Should I save this?
Yes. And so there you've got the...
Done. Want me to add another note?
There you've got the end-to-end experience. This is very much, it's a completely linear version of the interaction that we're trying to create here, but it has all of the functionality. It's saving all of the information locally within the conversation as variables. So it gives you a sense of what it allows you to test out on this happy path, what the ideal interaction with your user looks like. So to create this happy path, all we've done is we've used the speak step here. We've used the choice step. And that is all. Like you can really map out quickly, prototype out quickly what the basic interactions between your system and your user look like, just to get a feel about how that experience feels. Is it a good user experience? Are you able to capture all of the information you need to successfully create the output you're intending to with your skill? So the next step that we want to take in our project now is making it, taking our project or this happy path we've designed and making it less of a linear experience. The reason is if, for example, with my note-taking app, I had to go through this flow every single time I wanted to create a note. Sometimes it's going to be useful, but other times it's probably going to be overkill. Maybe I don't want to add a priority. Maybe I don't want to review it. Maybe I don't need to categorize it. Maybe I just want to get my idea recorded, saved, and out with 1 or 2 interactions. And so the idea with dialogue management is that it allows for less linear or non-linear conversation design that allows the user to dictate the path in the conversation as opposed to the system. And the main difference in terms of how we do that is, as opposed to using the choice step in a lot of our, in all of the turns in our conversation, we're going to use the intent step. And so the difference in functionality there is they both handle intents in your application. The choice step, it will only accept the intents that you've included in that choice step. So if I were to say, for example, when I hit this in my happy path, when I hit this choice step, if I were to say review it, which is one of my intents, or review, it's not going to recognize it because it's not one of the intents that I have included, one of the 3 intents I've included here. So we're going to use the intent step and then the prompt step, which the prompt step is basically it gets your assistant to stop and listen for an intent. So when I say, I'll run through, or I'll just jump into the example here, but the way that this gets designed now instead is when I invoke the skill, as opposed to saying explicitly, is this a to-do or an idea to try and get the categorization, I just want to say, go ahead. All right, start, give me your to-do. Give me your, what do you want to add? I'm looking for that right out of the gates. And then, so the system prompts that, and then it just waits. It uses this prompt step to just listen. And the user then can hit any of the available intents on my project. So I can go ahead and just provide the note content right out of the gates. So the way I would do that is I would use an intent step and define my note content. So if when the skill hits this prompt step, the user provides the note content intent, that intent will get matched, and it will start to move down this path defined here. So it will capture my note content, and then the system's going to say, do you want to review it, add details, or save it? And then it's going to stop and listen for an intent. So at that point in the conversation, the user could either invoke the review intent, the add details intent, the save intent, or just overwrite the note and create a new note. So when you hit the prompts, when you use a prompt step, any of the intent steps that you have on your canvas are accessible by the user. And so I would go through and I would just kind of recreate all of the steps. What did I call this intent? Read note. If they want to review it, they're going to hit the read note intent. If they want to add details, they're going to hit the add details intent. If they want to save the note, they're going to hit the save note intent. There we go. And so now this allows the user to control the experience and determine how much or how little information they want to add to their note. So I can give you an example of this now in practice. Zoom in a little. All right.
Go ahead.
Add analytics to the website.
Want to review it, add details, or save it?
Review it.
Add analytics to the website. Want to add details or save it?
Add details.
What category should I tag this with?
Analytics.
What number priority?
It's a 3.
Is this an idea or a to-do?
It's a to-do. It's a to-do. Oh, there we go. Sorry. I could retest. I didn't say the correct utterance there, but so that's me just jumping through this flow in the exact same order that was provided above. But at the same time, this interaction, the user has the choice to just do the same interaction without providing any details, without reviewing. Add analytics to the website.
Want to review it, add details, or save it?
Save it.
Okay, saved. Let me know if you.
So that's just an example of having how you're able to design user-led conversations in Voiceflow using intents and prompt steps as opposed to just the choice step. It allows for much more open-ended navigation of the experience. There are going to be some use cases where you have where a choice step is best suited for that, where there's a limited scope of information or limited scope of choices that we want to give the user at this step in the conversation versus other scenarios where you're going to want to keep it open-ended and allow them to really just choose what to do next. So those are the two ways that you can really design your experience here. The one point to add on this is around dialogue management specifically. So let's look at our add details intent here. So within this, the user could say add details, or they could say add and provide the category name or the priority number or the list type they want to add to within that utterance that invokes the add details intent. Now, we know that we want to capture all 3 of these pieces of information, both the category, the priority, and which list type. And so within the intent, when you're designing your intents here, you're going to put your utterances in there. And within the utterances, you want to define your slots. So I want to say add category. So one of my utterances could be just add category. And any of the slots that you use in your utterances, these things highlighted here, they will show up down here under your slots list. Now you have the option to make your slots required or not required, or just optional. So if the user provides us the information, we'll capture it. If not, we'll let them continue on their conversation without providing it. In this instance, I want to make these required so that I make sure I capture all of these pieces of information before moving forward. So when you're doing that, when you've set a slot to required, it's going to ask you to input a slot prompt. So if when I invoke my add details intent here, I don't provide a category, the system is going to automatically follow up with the prompt. What category should I tag this with? And then you can define, well, here's all of the things the user might say in return to that. Here's where here's where this slot gets captured in those utterances. And then you can even provide a additional confirmation on top of that, just to confirm that you got the information correctly. And what this does is it really just makes sure that you're capturing clean data from your customer, or from your user as you're moving through your experience, so that you have all of the necessary information to make that experience a good one, a successful one for the user. So those are the two different types of conversations you can design, but really just taking our happy path, which is a very linear experience, standardized flow through it, and pretty overkill for a lot of situations that I'd use this app for. Well, now we've made it a lot more flexible by using our props and intent steps and dialogue management on those intents. All right, the next evolution to the project that I would make is adding in conversation repair. So all of these interactions are very successful because obviously I'm literally reading the inputs off the screen here. Your actual users aren't going to have the benefit of that, and they're going to say things that maybe are unexpected. They're going to provide slot values that are maybe out of scope on a slot. They're going to jump around in the conversation when they're really not expected to. And so there's a few tools that you have in Voiceflow that enable you to handle those unhappy paths, repair the conversation, get the user back on path. So the things that we'll just run through here are reprompts and repair paths. So regardless of whether you're using the choice step to collect your intent from your user, or the prompt step to collect that intent, the option is built into both to be able to input reprompts. So when you when you put a prompt step here, if you click on it, this is just going to stop and look for any available intent. But if it doesn't hear an intent that you have defined on your project, it's going to then go to a reprompt. Here you can define what the system says when you don't hear one of the available intents on the project. The first time I run into it, it's going to say, sorry, I didn't get that. Say it again. Second time, it's going to say, please dictate your idea, et cetera, et cetera. You can have up to 3 reprompts. And what this helps you do is design increasingly specific instruction for your user on how to correctly match one of the available intents that you're expecting at that step in the conversation. So if I were to get to this point in the conversation and say, find me a restaurant, well, it's not expecting that because none of my intents in this project have defined anything to do with restaurant search or restaurants at all. So what I'm going to want to do then is have those reprompts that are going to say, sorry, I didn't catch that. Can you try again? The first try, maybe it was just, you know, that the way it was said didn't quite match the NLU. If we don't capture it the second time, maybe I want to get more specific and have something like, please input your note or to do. What is your note or to do? Please say specifically, you know, what your to do is here. And so you can really get more granular you don't want to be too heavy handed out of the gates. But if a user is kind of failing to meet that, invoke one of the intents, you can get more and more specific. And so that's built into both the prompt steps and the choice step that we looked at up here. On the choice step, you have the option for both to use the reprompt, the same as we have with the prompt step, or to use a path where you can define, okay, if none of these options are met, take the conversation down this path. And so maybe you want to have a different behavior if they don't match it, as opposed to just trying to get them to try again and again. So that's how you use some of the built-in tools to repair conversations, specifically when they're providing an intent. There are also scenarios where you're going to want to build in repair paths when a specific piece of information or context from the user is not available to proceed within the conversation. So specifically in this example, if in my note-taking app, I provide a note to the app, it captures the note, and then I say save it, well, the system can't save the note at that time because it at least needs to know which list to save it to. So we cannot complete the save note intent unless the list type is defined. So we're going to build a repair path into that using some of the logic, using the if condition logic step here. And so what this does is allows you to build in if statements into your conversations that you can run against variables that you've collected in your project. So slot values and variables are used interchangeably. So if on my list variable, nothing is set, if it's just a 0, then I'm going to make sure to run the user through the list type, the note type intent, make sure I capture that information before proceeding to the save step. If the list type is already defined and it's already set as to do, then great, go right to the save confirmation. So this is an example of how you would build in those conditional paths into your project to be able to handle edge cases where the conversation would just fail, or you wouldn't be able to necessarily proceed to the next action or the successful outcome for the user. So that's on conversation repair. We got a bit into the logic steps using the conditions there. Another area that you're able to utilize logic in your conversation design or in your project design here is building context into your project. And so that's the next layer of design. So we've got the happy path built. We've got all our dialogue management configured. We've got our repair paths built into our experience now. So we've got a fully functioning end-to-end flow now that handles both happy and unhappy paths, but it's going to be the same experience for all users beginning to end. There's no context around the user or their scenario of use built into our design yet. So that's what we're going to do in this context section. Now, the idea with context is okay, with the note-taking app, we probably want to provide a different experience for a first-time user than we do an existing user. for the first time user, we're probably going to want to run them through a user flow that explains all of the options they have available to them, where it forces them to go through all of the steps, provide all of the specific pieces of information required so that they get familiar with what information can be given and what all of these options mean. But if it's my second, fifth, 10th time coming back to this app, then I probably don't want to go through that flow. That flow's overkill. I know what my options are. I know how to use them. So what we want to do is provide a conditional flow for new versus existing users. That would be, the first most obvious way that we can build context into this. If, another potential context we'd want to build into this is what note-taking tool does the user use? And the types of integrations we build into it later on would be variable, or integration used would be variable based off of the type of tools they're using. Whether it's the weekend or a weekday is one piece of context. Maybe on weekdays I'm going to add it to my work to-do list. If it's weekends, I'm going to add it to my personal to-do list. These are the variable contextual paths you can build into your user experience to make it much more dynamic. So we'll look at the first example I gave, which is just a new versus existing user path. Now, we're going to use the if condition, the if step here, the condition step, to branch the path for the two different contexts that we want to create, first of all. So the way that we do that is if the variable sessions equals 1, we're going to take them down this new user path. And if the variable sessions is greater than 1, take them down the existing user path. So this is a pretty basic implementation of that, but a lot of conditions that you're going to apply are really just a matter of a count of something, or whether they have a piece of information available on your user data or not. And so what this is going to do is going to branch my path. And the other element of logic that I'm using here is the flow block, or the flow step here. And what the flow step does is it allows you to encapsulate an entire part of your conversational flow into a separate canvas on Voiceflow. So over here on the left, you're going to see all of the available flows that you have. By default, every project comes with a help and stop flow because you need to have some mechanism for the user to get help on your skill. That's by default something required with Alexa skills and Google Actions, and a mechanism to stop the experience. So we put those by default into your project. Oh, there we go. Sorry, my screen's just a little bit laggy here. So by default, now I have gone ahead and added 2 new flows for new user and existing user. In my new user flow, I've actually just copied in the experience that we created, our happy path flow, because it forces the person to go through every step. It allows them to learn it. But after their first user experience with my app, it's probably overkill. So anytime we hit the existing user, if a user has more than 1 sessions, they're just going to get the existing user flow, which is the one that we created in our dialog management, with our dialog management, which is a lot more open-ended, allows the user to just kind of dictate their path. So now that context is built directly into my user experience. And now I have, the user experience of the application is going to differ based off of the context of the user that's using it. And finally, now I've got this project created. I've got the end-to-end experience defined. I'm handling edge cases, unhappy paths, repair paths required to get through that end-to-end user flow. I have created contextually different flows within my app based off of the context of the user. Now, finally, the last thing I want to do is hook up my the Alexa skill I'm designing here, my conversational app, to the external systems it needs to interact with. And so that's where we get into this fourth collection of steps that are available here in Voiceflow. We've got the ability to do any sort of API calls with anything that has a publicly available API, or not even a publicly available API. Integrate with Google Sheets to be able to write, read, update data on Google Sheets. Zapier, trigger a zap on Zapier, or custom code if you want to write a specific function into your application and have that code run as part of the sequence in your conversation flow. For this example, I need to be able to, when my note is captured, we have made sure that we've gotten the required piece of information. Then I am going to make an API request out to my Todoist, and it's going to write that to-do into my Todoist. And so I'm using the API step here, and I'm just defining a post step, and I've actually just used a Zapier. I've used the Zapier webhook function to call that webhook. And so every time I hit this step, it's going to call that webhook, and it's going to pass through this body of content. And then that zap is then going to write that information into my Todoist for me. I'm not even writing a direct integration or a direct API call to Todoist right here. I'm just using a zap. If you've got this, oh, I shouldn't have deleted that. There we go, I did. Goody. If you downloaded or copied this project, there's a link to the zap right here if you want to reuse this and reconfigure it so it triggers any other service that's available on Zapier. Great way to mock up these applications. You know, if I were releasing this publicly, I'd save myself money on Zapier and just do the integration directly to Todoist. But here, why don't I just run through this flow now? So we've just we're evolving the exact same flow we've been building throughout this session. Here, I'm going to do my note content. Cool. Then I'm going to add my detail. Oh no, that's my read note. I'm going to read my note. Read my note, and then I'm going to add the details here. The reason that I keep deleting the intents from the above steps is if you've got them listed multiple times, if you've got the intent used multiple times on a canvas, it won't know which one to go to. So you can only use an intent once per canvas so that you have certainty over what intent is getting called. Otherwise, it would jump around between flows for me. All right, add details. Save my note. Boom. All right. Cool. So now if I go ahead and test this, I'm going to jump out of full screen. This should fire off a webhook to my Todoist and update my my to-do list right here. So we'll shrink that down, shrink this down, run the test.
Go ahead.
Add analytics to the app.
Want to review it, add details, or save it?
Save it. Here. Let me just didn't capture that. Add analytics to the app.
Want to review it, add details, or save it?
Save it.
Okay, saved. Let me know if you want to add another one.
All right, and so that's the experience there. It's going to pop up here in Oh, it's already there. Add analytics to the app. Great. So that's integrations functioning. Now, just the next step for me to use this would be to hit the upload to Alexa button here. That would make it available for me on Alexa locally. And so the example that I gave to you is just this skill uploaded. When it's in the developer console, you can test it here. You can also test it on any Alexa devices that you have connected to the same account that you're publishing to on Voiceflow. Same goes for Google Actions. And so that's the end-to-end workflow that you would take in Voiceflow to go from concept all the way to functioning user experience for your app here. All right. Now, I think we'll stop there, but I'd love to get any questions here. How do I find my chit chat? All right.
One of the questions, so there's a few of them kind of came through private chat, so I'll try to make it a little bit easier for you to find them.
Perfect.
So the first one was, we had someone ask around, what does it look like to know what session the user is on? You talked about kind of creating that for first session or coming back. Can you let us know what that looks like?
Sure thing. Yeah. So sessions is one of the default variables that comes built into Voiceflow. So if you go down to the bottom left, there's this model here, and you're able to see the intents, slots, and variables used available on your projects. And so we've got these 5 variables built in to the project. So you're able to, sessions being one of those, locale, platform they're on, Alexa or Google, user ID and timestamp. So it allows you to utilize those variables in your project. Sessions, it basically just increments up one every single session that this specific user will run. So it's just tracking, incrementing up the number of times that user's interacted with this project. And so that will be used also on your live skill. It's not just within Voiceflow.
Awesome. The next question that came up is, how do you randomize questions? Like, what's the time now? What's the weather, etc.?
Great question. So if, for example, you wanted to have, if you wanted to if you were just trying to, like, a user hits this point in the flow and we want to ask them a different question, what's the time, what's the weather? What you can do is, within the speak step, you're able to add as many responses as you want. If you add multiple responses, it's just going to read through these linearly, like what's the time, and then what's the weather. But if you do want to randomize those, there's the opportunity to randomize outputs here. And when that's selected on your speak block, it's just going to choose one of these responses you defined and provide that as the response for the user. Now, if you wanted to randomize maybe intents or paths in your conversation, there's also this function under a step function here under logic, where it's a random step, and it provides an output per path. So you can create randomized paths in your conversation flow based off of just the randomization of the system pushing them down one path or the other.
Awesome. Another question here is, with the general assistant coming out, what does that mean for designs? Is there going to be functionality that's different in there, or does it only dictate where you publish it?
Yeah. So the intention with the general assistant is that we're going to be building in functionality that is applicable to conversational assistant use cases that are non-Alexa and Google. The Alexa and Google project types are very focused and have very specific functionality for those platforms. But we know that our users are using Voiceflow to design for IVR systems, custom assistants, in-car assistants, in-app assistants, all sorts of conversational use cases. And so we want to be able to provide, through the general assistant, functionality geared towards those types of use cases. So right now, what we've put out, we've stripped away the channel specific functionality from Alexa and Google, but we're going to be adding in a lot over this coming quarter of functionality that enables more of those additional conversation design use cases that go beyond Alexa and Google.
Awesome. And one last question that came through is someone asked, how did you get to create the designs that you have on the canvas right now? So I believe they're referring to the Happy Path, Dialog Management, all these wonderful black outlines.
All right. So zooming in on this one, we've got the markup feature. This is a pro feature, just to call that out. But that allows you to put text markup and image markup on your screen. And so these items, all of the text that you see here on the canvas is just the text markup in action. All of these images are just image uploads. And then these containers around them, those are also just image uploads. I made those in Sketch and then just imported them. But this is something we're looking at, is how we can extend markup to be more of a functional tool for users. So if you've got any feedback on what else you'd like to see enabled there, let me know.
All right. Well, there's actually 2 questions that just snuck in that I thought, if we have time and you're okay with it, Rob, then
I got all the time in the world for this.
Perfect. So 2 questions. First one is, can we integrate Alexa or Voiceflow within a website, for example?
Integrate within a website. There's no way to do that in the default within the default functionality here. We are in the process of rolling out the ability to download a project and run that integrated into any assistant platforms or interfaces of your own creation. So it's basically an SDK that's going to now allow you to design your conversations within the Voiceflow Creator tool, and then export them and run them in whatever interface. And that would technically include websites. So if you did want to have a web experience enabled there for your assistant, you'd be able to do that. But that's coming sometime this year. We're really just in early development on that and some early testing.
Great. And the last one was, how did you generate the link for us to download this project or to copy this project?
Yeah, so 2 things to call out here. There's this export menu that you can find next to your project name. This allows you to export your canvas as an image, a PDF, or a local file. So image or PDF, it's a snapshot of your screen. This is currently a pro feature. We are in the progress of just making that a free feature, but watermarked, so that you'll have access to that. You'll be able to share your assets and your designs. If you do the local file and you export that, it's downloading this .vf file type, and then you're able to download or import any projects using the import function here. So there we go. Which, as you can see, I use excessively. So I'm able to, import projects that way. The way that I shared this with your with the people on the call here is, if you hover your project on the dashboard, there's this copy download link. And so this gives you a shareable link that allows somebody to download it if you don't want to share the file.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Rob. And thanks everybody for attending. So with that, I'm going to quickly share my screen just to kind of close things off. And I want to remind everybody that we will be making this available afterwards, so you can go through everything that Rob said with a fine-tooth comb. And for everybody who's looking to get a little bit deeper or kind of do more some self-navigation and learning, we do have a really wonderful series of tutorials available at voiceflow.com/tutorials. along with our community. So if you decide to follow along with the webinar after this and you have any questions, you can get in contact with anybody from the team or a ton of people within this call just by joining bit.ly/VF community. And so with that, stay tuned. We have a ton more events that we're going to be announcing this week coming up into the new year. And if there's anything else that you guys would like to see from us or any kudos that you'd like to send over to Rob, definitely let us know either in the community or on Twitter. We'd love to chat with you. Thanks so much, guys.
Thank you all so much. I appreciate you taking some time to join us here today. Thank you.